story that actually happened to me in high school. Every year, my high school had these trips that we would go on as part of our educational process to sort of give us some real-world experience. And it could be anything from traveling to a foreign country to sometimes we even like go skiing, as long as we could justify that it was somehow educational for like environmental reasons. Anything you could justify as educational in any way, we're allowed to do as a trip. And so there's all these different trips that were sponsored that we could go on. And up until the year I had been there was no limit on what the trip could be, what it could entail, as long as it could be justified as educational. My first year there, they were trying to institute a new policy where they're trying to cap the amount that you could spend on the trips at $400. And the idea was that some of the students were more affluent than others, so they could afford it, whereas others couldn't. They're just trying to even things out, make sure everybody had a level playing field, which is, it's a nice idea. It's a good, they're just trying to have justice for everybody, make sure everybody has the same options available to them. But the thing about it is that what you're doing is you're giving the people that can afford the $400 the same experience that they would if you were allowing everything, whereas for the people that could have afforded more, you're actually limiting them. And so I remember this very well because we had a huge meeting, huge community meeting for the school at it, and in high school I actually got like a standing ovation from like the student body, which I thought was silly on a simple point. But the idea was that, look, I was someone that couldn't afford, the $2,000 trip to Spain, but my life would still be made better by my classmates going and doing that, having that positive experience, and bringing back their learning, as opposed to them being limited. So this is just one example of a case where the idea of justice, the idea of equality, while good intentions, is not necessarily the best for utility, and actually ends up potentially shooting in the foot the very people who you're most aiming to help through it. This occurs many, many places in life, but one of the places going to occur the absolute most is when there's a lot of emotions involved, when there's not only a sense of justice, but the sense of someone being wronged, or the sense of like vengeance or revenge. That's where people really get caught up in living in the past. So the general idea here is you want to live in the moment, deal with things based on the utility of right now, and realize that the past doesn't exist. The past got you where you are today, but beyond that, it doesn't exist and it should not factor into your decision making. You need to make rational decisions based on the here and the now. A great example of sort of a similar to sunk cost effect and also emotional decision making occurs in poker. Many of you may know I played poker professionally for 4 years. There's this phenomenon called tilt in poker. And the phenomenon of tilt is really, really fascinating. The idea is that either maybe you lose a pot that you shouldn't have, you put all your money in like with the best odds in your favor, and then the wrong card comes and you lose a huge pot, you're down thousands of dollars. Or sometimes what will happen is you play a hand really badly, and you know that you played it badly. So either, and especially if you play a hand badly and then you end up losing because you played badly, even if it's not a huge loss, it's really going to fester because you know you could have done better, and it's going to really like hurt your sort of self-esteem, your ego as a poker player. So one way or another, if either of these things occurs, throughout the next several hands, there are a couple tendencies. The first tendency is not to focus on the hand in progress. It's to be focused on the past hand, ruminating, not doing the best you can moment to moment. The other tendency, though, is to try and get even. The tendency to try and get back what you did or what you lost before. So say you lost that big pot by being unlucky, there's a tendency, and this is well documented, for people to try and play bigger pots to try and like win it back immediately so that they can feel like they're even again, they can feel right again. And the interesting thing is that say that you've lost $2,000, that feels bad. If you lose $4,000, that also feels bad, but it doesn't feel that much worse. Whereas if you get even, or if you get ahead, that feels amazing. Now you get that emotion of winning. So what happens is you have this skewed sort of payout where you feel like if you lose some more money, it doesn't matter. If you win more money, it does matter. So you become much more prone to take risks. You become much more prone to do stupid things, right? Because you're trying to get even. You're trying to get back what you perceive as being yours. Whereas the rational poker thing to do is just look at every hand, realize that as a poker player, your entire career is one long series of hands, and you're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs, but you want to play each hand the best you can and play each hand based on its own merits, right? As soon as, again, you're not judging the situation based on its own merits, you're judging it based on an emotion, based on trying to get something back, based on trying to justify, based on trying to not have been wrong before. A lot of times what will happen if you made the bad play is you'll start trying to make brilliant plays, you'll try to make a great play to make up for it, and then you'll end up making even more bad plays, and it will only spiral downwards. So again, these are all examples of how we make emotional decisions as opposed to rational ones, and how we let the past influence our present. So we have the ideas of sunk cost, the ideas of tilt, and these are just other ways that we can allow this idea of justice, even though in poker it's not even justice, it's like statistical justice or like the cards falling right or whatever, but this idea of justice in the world We allow it to affect our decision making, and most of the time, if you have a righteous sort of feeling about things, or you're feeling a sense of justice, you're gonna start making bad decisions. So again, take a breath, step back, decide what's right in the moment, and go with it, and realize that what you had before doesn't matter. You can only have what you have now. The idea of the sunk cost effect, here's a brief explanation, is that when you've put money into something, or when you've invested into something in the past, it makes it easier to justify putting more money into it. For example, say that you had like a car that had been yours for a long time, and you'd put like tons of money into fixing it up, and then you find out there's something tremendously wrong with it. Say you just put thousands of dollars into fixing it, and it's $500 to fix it, but the car's really just not worth that much. You'd be more likely, emotionally at least, to want to fix it, to justify that all those other thousands of dollars weren't a bad investment, that you didn't make a mistake before. And so you'd be stuck in trying to pay that $500. Whereas if you were just left with it clean, as the first repair, it's broken down, you look at it on paper and you make a rational decision, you'd be like, no, we're not fixing this. This car's totaled, move on with it. Right? So that's the idea of the sunk cost effect, is that you're justifying your current expenditure based on past expenditure. The same thing happens a lot in relationships, which is that say you've been with someone for a really long time and it's maybe not a good relationship anymore, but because you've been with them for 6 months or a year, 2 years, 7 years, 10 years, because you've invested that time, you want to try and make it work, even if on a rational level you wouldn't naturally think that that's the right thing to do. Simply because if it fails, you have to admit to yourself that you've made mistakes along the way. You have to admit to yourself that you've wasted X number of months or years of your life. And so there's this tendency to stick with past decisions, or to cling to past decisions, or to try and justify that you were right before, rather than admit you were wrong and move on. And many mistakes, and many of the biggest mistakes you'll ever make in your life, are based on trying to appear right, trying to justify a past decision, instead of just doing what is right in the moment. So again, we're left with this lesson of what? The past doesn't exist, the future is uncertain yet, but what you can do is make the best decision in the moment. Weigh the consequences, make the best decision. Okay, so let's relate this directly to the idea of justice / vengeance, and to the idea of game and the idea of social interaction. A couple more examples. It's going to be definitely a video full of examples. One was, I was in Australia, and there was this girl who had given my student a very hard time, and I decided, no, that's not acceptable. I'm gonna show her, I'm gonna teach her right, whatever. And so I went and I kind of started teasing her and mocking her. And it got to the point where she actually took off her high heel and swung it at me. I ducked. She ended up hitting her friend in the face with a high heel. I actually laughed at her, and then she threw her high heel at me. I ducked, and again it went end over end into a crowd full of people. At which point I felt that I'd proven my point, and I left. And clearly, if anybody had escalated the situation, if anybody had done anything massively wrong, it was her. However, this girl was silly enough, or irrational enough, or crazy enough to have the gall to go to the bouncer and report that I had done something to her after all this. And so what ended up happening, long story short, is everybody got kicked out. And the idea here was it wasn't worth it. I mean, I guess I taught her a lesson, I got justice, whatever, but the fact of the matter was I ended up getting kicked out as well, and I had more to lose because I was busy. I had boot camp students that ended up ruining the flow of the program and cost me much more. So even though, yes, I got justice, even though, yes, the truth was served in the end, kind of, in a weird way, there was enough collateral damage, there was enough fallout that it wasn't really worth it in terms of consequences. And this is what seems to happen a lot of times when this is the case. A lot of times it's better to just, keep the bullseye off your back, not make enemies, to just, do what is the best for you in the moment, and not think you have to be some kind of crusader for the right in the world, or think that you have to go teach someone a lesson. One last example of this. There's a restaurant that we used to go to a lot, or we still do go to a lot actually, for immersion. And one of my students was unable to get a substitution he wanted at that restaurant, which technically we weren't even supposed to get. It wasn't even on the menu, but they'd always done it for us before, and they'd always, because we're very loyal customers, we go there a lot, we'd never had a problem with it. And so he kind of took it out on this one waiter, and he wanted to give the waiter a really hard time for it. And I told him, don't do it. It's not worth it. Just whatever. He's like, no, but I'm going to do it. I'm like, well, if you want to, here's how you do it, but seriously, don't do it. So of course he took the advice where I gave him the technical advice of how to do it instead of the like rational advice of don't do it. And what ended up happening is he and the waiter got into a huge spat, and I mean, end of the day, it wasn't a huge deal, but now because he's on bad terms with that waiter, he's afraid to go back there because he's afraid that they'll like spit in his food or something, and now he doesn't want to go join us at that restaurant where I'll go, and it puts a cramp in his plans, our plans, etc. And was it really worth it over that one substitution the one day? It probably wasn't. So again, stick in the moment, take a long-term perspective, realize that what's going to happen as you become successful in life is that the more successful you get, the more you have to lose. And most of the time it's great that you're successful and you're going to reap the benefits. Every now and again, there will be situations where it will work against you, where you have to watch out for it. I mean, the fact of the matter is rich people have to worry about their kids getting kidnapped. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Or another story, as long as we're giving examples, one of my friends, he moved to a new city, got a new car. First night he went out, he went to park the car in kind of a shady area near the clubs, and some homeless guy said, "Hey, give me $5." He said, "No, I'm sorry, I'm good, sorry." And he goes, "Okay, give me $5, I'm going to key your car." And now this is a situation again where having something really puts you in, almost like with a target on your back, puts you in harm's way. And that's the downside of becoming successful. The downside of becoming successful is you're going to usually be the one with more to lose, and sometimes you just have to avoid the moral high ground. You just have to look, deal with it, and live to fight another day, because mutually assured destruction only hurts the person who's a winner at life. So it's kind of a sad way that things come down that way. Sometimes you can't have justice, but if you take the right course of action, if you do what's right, moment to moment in the long run, you'll accumulate so much. These little victory, defeat situations won't matter in the end, and you will get the last laugh. You'll just get it by out-succeeding them, by out-winning them, by being the person they envy down the road, rather than by showing them right then and there. And I promise you, anyone who needs to be shown a lesson, anyone who you need to take your little vengeance on, they probably lead such a sad, pathetic life. It's not worth doing it anyway. All right, so I don't know if that's a positive, uplifting end or a negative end, but that's my story. Focus on you, do what's right for you, be the winner in your own life, and don't worry about crusading against every little injustice in life. You'll just waste too much energy on it, and there's too much fallout. All right?